If you're looking to spice up your video with some new effects, then this tutorial is for you. I'm not only going to mention the idea, but I'll walk you through step by step how to do these within After Effects, which makes this video sort of long. So feel free to use the timestamps or the chapters to browse and find anything that you like. As always, likes, comments, and subs are always appreciated. I'm going to be making a 10 effect ideas for Blender next, so keep an eye out for that. Now let's dive into After Effects and get started. All right, so starting off with number one, we have the match cut. This is by far my favorite transition, and it's something that has timeless use across the world of filmmaking. Match cuts are super simple to make, yet you can get really creative with the use of them. You can match cut a sound, the composition of a frame, or a movement. And they're really easy to make using After Effects masking tools and the control of the layers. So let's hop into After Effects here and we'll drag in two clips. And we essentially just want to look through these two clips and find a spot where the composition looks the same as the next. So in this shot, we have him kind of flourishing towards the camera. Let's see if we can find something similar. So maybe like right here. So I'm going to click Control-Shift-D just to split at this moment. And then just like the word match cut, you just want to match these two spots up. And a pro tip here, to match this up even better, you can click T on this layer to bring up the opacity, and we can lower the opacity just so we can sort of see through. And then we can match these up as best as possible. So wherever his hand is here, let's try and match the hand on the bottom layer, S and scale it up, something like that. Once you have it matched up as best as possible, go ahead and click T again, put the opacity back to normal. Let's move these over a little bit just to give us some time. And then we can create our little cut for the transition. Control-Shift-D, delete this. And there you go, extremely easy. And if you just look and we pop frame by frame, you can see the faces are matching up, the hands are matching up. It's not perfect, and it's definitely going to be dependent on the shots you're using, but I think it's pretty smooth and pretty seamless. Number two is motion blur plus transform, and you can use this a lot of different ways. So let me show you one basic way, and that's going to be creating this Tarantino zoom, as I like to call it, where you have this zoom in and all the edges are blurry. Again, you can do this with spins. You can do this with different layers that are transforming and moving around the screen. You just have to, one, create some sort of movement, and then two, add the motion blur. So here's how we do it. To create the movement, you can either use the transform effect, which allows you just to scale, pan, do whatever, or you can use an After Effects camera, which I prefer. So I'm going to right click down here and go to new and create a camera. We'll click OK. And then to actually be able to use this camera, we have to make these 3D layers. So just click toggle switches and modes and then enable this switch. Now we can create a keyframe for our camera zoom. So we'll open up transform for the camera. We'll keyframe right here, and let's say at this position, I want it to be zoomed in to our guy here. So we can click C on our keyboard, and that's going to toggle through the camera controls. This is the rotate, this is pan, and this is zoom. So we want the zoom. Let's zoom into the face, click C, and then just pan it over. And again, we keyframed here, so you can see all these little keyframes. Now let's just drag to the beginning, and we can click reset. So it'll go from normal to zoomed in. So let's play that. Just like this. There's our normal zoom. Now let's add the motion blur. And to do that, all you have to do is enable the motion blur switch. So just like we turned on that 3D layer switch, again, if you're not seeing that, click toggle switches and modes, turn on motion blur switch for these layers. That'll add some realistic blur to this motion, and you can change how much motion blur there is either by changing the timing of the keyframes. So for example, if I make this a lot more fast, you're going to see there's going to be some more blur. And if I just toggle that on and off, you can see what we're doing here. You can add even more motion blur by going up to composition, composition settings, advanced, and then you can use the shutter angle here to really make it crazy if you want. So great way to add emphasis in your videos and fully control what the camera is looking at. Number three is rotoscope clones. A few years ago, the freeze frame effect was super popular. The Rotoclone is like a freeze frame with how it pops in, but it's not actually frozen. That gives you the ability to create some really cool transitions or stack other effects on top. So for some of these effects, I'm going to be gathering video assets across the internet. For this, I highly recommend you guys look into a VPN to stay safe while downloading files and browsing the web. I'm going to be using NordVPN, which is the the sponsor of today's video. Even when you're not connected to the VPN server, NordVPN has a threat protection feature which can block malware and conceal your IP so you stay protected from malicious ads and intrusive tracking. I know a lot of you edit on the go, you're probably connecting to public Wi-Fi's or working on your laptop, so make sure you're taking measures to keep your data safe. NordVPN is quick and easy to use. You can use it on your phone, laptop, or PC, so you have peace of mind across all your devices. Not only can NordVPN help protect you, but it can also be used to unlock content from other countries. Easily gain access to shows, movies, and sports games from different regions that wouldn't normally be available to you. Cybersecurity is definitely something that's becoming more and more important these days, so if you guys are interested in NordVPN, go to nordvpn.com/maxnovak to get the 2-year plan with an exclusive deal plus 1 bonus month on top. It's risk-free with NordVPN's 30-day money-back guarantee. So to do this yourself, let's find a spot in this video that we'd like to pop in. So maybe like right here. Let's go ahead and rotoscope this part of the video so that we don't have the background, we only have the subject. So to do that, you just double click on the layer until it says layer here and not composition. Then you grab your roto tool in the top left and you just draw like this. So the key here is to get these purple lines around the subject. So you can hold down Alt to remove. And you're seeing there's an error here because we have a frame rate mismatch. Set the composition to 24 FPS. Composition settings. There we go. Now we see it's working. And again, hold down Alt and just try and get this purple line so that we're cutting out the part that we want. So something like that should work fine. Once you have that initial outline, just click the page down key on your keyboard to move over to the next frame. And you should see this line start to clean up as After Effects starts to process this and try and figure out what's going on. If there's still issues here, again, just use that brush. Now you can see After Effects is sort of locking onto it and getting the general idea of what we want. And we only need a few frames of this because we're going to make this pop in. So don't think you have to rotoscope out the entire composition. That should be fine. Once you're ready, just take this gray bar here and set it to the duration that we want to freeze. And then go ahead and click freeze. So After Effects did the masking for us. To see that, just go over to the composition tab. And now you can see there's a transparent background on the parts that we specified. So let's use this to create a little transition. Just drag this layer above the layer you want to transition into, like this. Let's Control-Shift-D to split it here so that it'll sort of pop into the footage, like that. And let it play a little bit. And then you see it'll pop its background in like that. So a cool way to sort of have that pop in like a freeze frame, but still have motion in there. And again, depending on the motion, like in this case, you can really create some cool looking things, and you can emphasize this pop in as well with something like a glow, a flicker, whatever you want. Number 3 is the zoom through. And like all the other effects, there's a ton of different alterations for pulling this off. You can make it spin through an object. You can choose different things to go through. You can have it travel through multiple layers. Let's just show you the basics of zooming through an object and using that to transition into another scene. So in this case, let's zoom into his glasses. We're going to do what we did before to create a zoom by using an After Effects camera. So we'll go right click, new camera, and we'll set up those keyframes in the camera to have our zoom in. So we'll start at the beginning, open up the transform for the camera and just keyframe everything. Then we're going to drag to where we want the zoom to end. So like right here, and then we'll click C again on our keyboard to control that. So here's the little keyframe animation we made. And if you want the zoom to be a lot more easy at this point here so that it's not moving off and changing around, we can just click Control-Shift-D to split, right click on this clip here, and then go to time and freeze frame. That way we can zoom in and then it'll be frozen and allow us to travel through this layer. So now we need to actually make the cut through. So we're going to select this freeze frame layer and just grab our pen tool and let's just mask out the glasses. Let's click M and set this to none so we can see what we're doing. And let's do the other side now too. Now let's set both of these to subtract. So the glasses are now transparent. And if you want, so it's not so subtle, you can have this sort of fade in to transparency. To do that, we can use the mask expansion. So click M to show the mask here. Go mask expansion and put it so that it's like this. Keyframe, drag a few, and set this back to 0. And you can also use mask feather, which is going to soften up this edge like that. Just be careful it's not too extreme, something like that maybe. Let's open up the second mask and we can copy the keyframes for the mask feather in the expansion. So keyframe feather, keyframe expansion on the second mask, copy these keyframes. Now let's continue our zoom. So we'll go back to our camera, zoom to where this is opened up and we'll click C and just keep zooming through. And you want to zoom so that we're completely through the glasses and you can't see that layer. So pretty easy. Just like that. Everything seamlessly blends together. And again, from this point, you can keep adding layers. You can keep zooming through different things like you see in those old ASAP Rocky videos. Now all we need to do is put whatever scene we'd like to transition into underneath here. So I'll go to my project bin and just grab some new footage. Drag it in there. And easy as that. Now you can see it playing through and we have a seamless zoom into the next scene. Next up is using generative fill within After Effects or even Photoshop to composite together crazy looking scenes. Now, if you want a full tutorial on what you can do with this, let me know in the comments. To actually do this, we need to start off by isolating our subject from the background. So let me delete these layers, Control-Shift-D, and let's go ahead and rotoscope this shot. So I'll double click and I'll grab my roto brush tool and we'll do the same we did before. And move a few frames. After Effects gets the idea. Stop it right here. And we'll click freeze. And let's check that out. Looks pretty good. Bonus tip here, if you want to clear up the hair, you can click and hold on the roto brush tool to grab the refine edge tool. And this is really useful. Let's double click so we're back in the layer. So let's unclick freeze. And now you can see it's sort of creating this matte. Keep moving a few frames. Looks good. Sticking to the hair, we'll click freeze. Now you can see the hair is masked out a lot better and you can refine that in the settings here if you want. So once you are at this point, we need to generative fill and change our background. So let's select here and click Control D and I'll name this subject and I'll name this background. So let's remove the roto brush from the effect controls on the background layer. And then we want to remove the subject here just for the first frame. So we'll click toggle switches of modes and we're going to change the blending mode to silhouette alpha. And then from here, you can use the content aware fill, which is available within After Effects, or you can use the new AI generative fill, which is in Photoshop. So if you're using content aware fill to see this window, you go to window content aware fill. So if you select this and you click create reference frame, it's going to create a frame and it's going to open that frame up within Photoshop like this. And from here, you can use content aware to fill in this transparent spot. So I'm going to grab the magic wand tool in Photoshop and just select here. And you see there's some parts that aren't in my selection. So I'll go up to select, modify, expand, and we'll expand this by like 50 pixels. And if there's still spots, you can grab your lasso and just shift click to add those in. Then what you would do is go up to edit and then content aware fill. And you'll see it's going to completely remove from the background. So once you have a background plate with the subject removed, you can use Photoshop Generative Fill AI to change parts of the background, or you can change it completely. You can also use some third-party AI image to image like Midjourney or Stable Diffusion. For example, in Midjourney, I can upload the background plate image to Discord, click here and open it up in a browser and then copy the link where the image is being stored. Then I can write /imagine to activate Midjourney and then paste in the image URL. I can write in the prompt I want. So for me, I'll write in tropical apartment buildings. And very important here, make sure you write in --AR and then the aspect ratio for your original image. So mine was 16:9. Let's click enter and there you go. Pick the one you like best. I'm going to click to upscale it and then I can save that and drop that straight back into After Effects. It gives you a similar composition to your last background, but it's altered with AI. So you can do some really cool stuff with that. You can also create some sort of transition where the background will switch. So I'm going to use one of my distortion effects from my psychedelic master pack presets for After Effects, which you guys can find on my website if you are interested. And yeah, pretty cool. Definitely an easy way to composite. And again, you have options for how you want to do this depending on which tool you use. All right, guys, so next up is collage editing. And this is really easy to do with After Effects using masking tools, using some extra tips and tricks, which I'm about to show you. So essentially all you really need is some sort of textured overlay. You can use the grain effect in After Effects as well, but I mean, it's super easy just to grab one of these and just drag it straight into After Effects like this. So I'll scale this up. This one is from Texture Labs, and I'll just place this over top of our background here. And from here, you guys can mess around with your blending mode so that it mixes well with the background. You guys can also drop in a brightness, contrast, or a curves effect to alter this and get the combination of collage or paper or whatever you want, and control the mixture. And then a cool little bonus tip here, say for example, you want some sort of like collage pop outs or whatever. You guys can use the masking tool. So let's take the texture and the background here, control click both of them, right click and pre-compose. So we're basically just combining these two clips into one. And I'll name this textured background. And then what you can do from here is duplicate this. So I'll click Control D. I'll grab my masking tool, and you can alt click to select different types of mask if you want rectangle or whatever. Let's make a circle here. So I'll just draw a circle. You see the mask pop up there. And then you can use layer styles. And these are the same layer styles which you can apply in Photoshop. You can actually do that in After Effects as well. And it works great for this collage style. So select this. I'll name this background paper cutout. I'll go up to layer styles, and I'll add a drop shadow. And then you'll see it pop up right there. Just go to drop shadow, and then you can bump up the opacity, change some distance. And essentially it's just making it look like there's some sort of paper cutout depth, like you're cutting away from the layer. And then from here, you guys can scale this. So maybe you want to go to scale, keyframe it, and you can make it like pop out or whatever. So let's just open up the full transform, keyframe everything, move a bit, add some scale. If you don't like how it's scaling to the right, what you guys need to do is go over here to the anchor point tool. And then here's the anchor point. It's in the center. Just move that anchor point right there. And this is going to be the origin where this scales from. Now you can have it sort of like pop up and just do it super fast like this. You can add some sort of wiggle expression. So if I go to position, alt click here, and I use the wiggle expression, I can go like 1,5, or if you want more, 10,5. And that's a cool way just to have some sort of like paper cutouts that are wiggling or moving around in your scene that you have full control over. Same goes for the actual subject here. So I can right click and pre-compose this and move all the attributes into the new composition. And then you can double click into this composition, and you can place any of your textures straight into here. And then you can change the blending mode to silhouette. And now when we go back to our main comp, you can see the texture is on the subject as well. So yeah, super easy to make those collage style edits. Again, because we already have this rotoscoped, if you wanted to go down the route of that ASAP Rocky sort of collage, you could like time reverse the layer and just have it looping or whatever you want to do. You can also posterize time to change the frame rates so it looks a bit more handmade and choppy. It goes for more of that like handmade style. Number 7 is the Colorama effect. So let's clean up our composition here. So the Colorama effect, in my opinion, is the go-to effect in After Effects anytime you want some sort of color. And there's so many different things you can do with this because of the cool presets that are built in. So if I place it on just the rotoed layer, again, we've isolated this. Now we have this crazy color on just the subject and not on the entire scene like this. Now, in terms of what you can do with Colorama, we open up input phase. You can have phase shift, which you can keyframe if you want this like psychedelic washing of color. And you also have the output cycle here with a bunch of user presets. So instead of just the RGB, you can go through, create a bunch of different cool, colorful looks. If you're looking for like a thermal color, night vision color, negative, hue cycle, it's all built into here. You can get a ton of different cool looks just by doing a rotoscope, again, setting up to control the different layers, and then just by dropping on Colorama. Next up, number 8, we have track lock. And this has been used a lot in the past. Ever since it was used in that Drake Travis Scott music video, people have been building on it. You can use track lock to spin like Gibson Hazard does in a lot of his music videos. It's also great for Instagram dance videos or TikTok short content, things like that. So the basics of doing this, very easy. So let's say in this clip, we're going to lock onto his hand because that's the main thing that's happening in the scene. Let's select this clip. We can go to window. We can go to the tracker window, and let's click on stabilize motion. So it's going to pop up this track point. We can just move this on the point that we would like to track lock. And again, you can do this on somebody's head. You can do this on any part you would like to lock on. And then from here, you just click play. And then once you want to finish the track, we can click stop. You're going to see once we play there, it's created some different keyframes for the tracking movement. That looks good. Let's click apply, and you want to click OK. And it's going to track onto that spot that we specified and move the entire scene. So we need to fix this transparent edge, and we can do that simply just by scaling. So we'll scale it up. Let's even open up all of transform here, and we can change the position so that it's centered the way we like, and we'll just keyframe all this and move through. And if anything messes up or the screen goes off from here, again, make sure you check on the motion blur switch. That'll make the movement look a lot more fluid and give it that distinct look. So it's a cool, unique thing. You can't get motion like this unless you're using tracking, and anything where you're controlling the motion and you're playing to the vibe of the song always turns out pretty well. Number 9 is going to be glitch distortion. And I like this one because it's evolved so much. From 2017, where people were just doing RGB splits. Now glitching is a lot more analog looking, and people are getting creative with the things that you can do. So I'm going to point you guys to this plugin. It's a free plugin called Omino Plugins. Pretty cool. Just go to the link below, click download. Once you've downloaded that, we can extract the zip file. And then if we open this up, you can click open for either Windows or Mac. I'm on Windows. Here's all these After Effects files. So we need to put this in our After Effects, and you can find that on Windows by right-clicking on After Effects, right-click here, and then go to Properties, and then just click Open File Location. And then we'll go over to Plugins, Effects, and then here's all those AEX files. So we can just select all these, Control-C, go in here and click Control-V, and then we'll restart After Effects. Now all I have to do is type in Omino, and you want to use Omino Diffusion. And it's pretty cool. It's like a circuit bent. You guys can keyframe this to get some different glitches or different phases here. Pretty self-explanatory. Change the direction. You have control of the width of the bands here. And you can even Control D to duplicate this clip. Delete Omino Diffusion from underneath, and you can mess around with the blending modes of the top. So this is the one with the glitch. This one is just normal. Mess around with the blending modes if you want to get just those lines across like that. So we'll put it on color dodge, and then we'll keyframe our glitch. So yeah, that's pretty cool. Again, other things you can do. The circuit benting little glitch boxes were pretty popular for a while. You guys can look into that if you're interested, or even easier method if you want to go full analog VHS style. You guys can buy an actual VHS camera. You can probably get this from like a thrift store for a couple of dollars. Go ahead and play your footage that you'd like to have glitchy and retro looks on a TV, and then just record the footage on that TV with your VHS camera. Process that, bring it back to the editor, and you can get some classic VHS style VHS glitching that you can't do with the computer just by utilizing some of that older technology. Number 10 is behind the back effects, or simply put, just being able to control the layers and experiment. You can also continue to build upon this just by taking your subject layer, again, the rotoclip, click Control D to duplicate, and then you think of it like a sandwich. So this is the top layer of the sandwich, this is the bottom layer of the sandwich, and then whatever you put in here, if I click and drag, now you see we have a little clone behind. So you can do any sort of mismatch of effect or compounding effect just by having that understanding of how to control the layers. And then maybe you want to add like distortion or something. So we can use like a turbulent displace and put that on here. And now you have this sort of thing going on in the background. I'm going to put this example here, which is a really cool music video, has some really cool things with distortion and background clones. If that gets any ideas pumping for you, then you can add a transform effect. And if we open up effects, transform, you can keyframe and have these sort of, and have this sort of like pop out. And again, with the motion blur that we have going on here, you're really going to get some like crazy warping. Reduce this a bit. But it just goes to show, once you have that roto set up, you can use things like Colorama or the motion blur or whatever to keep building any effect that you want and make some cool stuff. So thank you guys for watching. I hope you did enjoy. Again, Blender 10 effect ideas is coming next. As always, guys, thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for supporting, and I'll see you guys in the next one.